We're back, and I recently co-hosted a Jiu Jitsu retreat in Tobago with Jordan Teaches Jiu Jitsu and Jedi Does Jiu Jitsu. And finally, we get a break from all the trash talkers constantly coming at me, and we get to see what it looks like when I beat up some YouTube fans. For round 1, we're going up against the organizer of this whole event, Joe. He's a brown belt from Trinidad, and we can see how his Jiu Jitsu compares to mine. Now I have 2 things going for me. 1, the superior hairline, and 2, speed. As I try to pass to my left, I switch directions, block his hip, and scoop up the guillotine. I know he wants to come on top, but because I have the guillotine and underhook, I can easily kick him over and I establish 69 guard. Even if I couldn't finish the submission, I got past his guard and I'm in a much stronger spot. By pinning him with my lat, I have quite a few options on how I want to advance this roll. We can easily see that Joe is fighting for inside position with his arms, so I have to beat his arms by putting my leg on top and putting him into the crucifix. Unfortunately for me, he rolls at the same time and I miss the guillotine, but I'm still able to take mount. However, I don't feel like getting some carpet burn with Jiu-Jitsu, so I reset and I get to work on my passing again. This is a way more important skill versus just holding dominant positions the entire time, as passing is so fundamental and important to developing a strong Jiu-Jitsu game. And what better pass is there to learn than a guillotine pass? Joe has both of his arms by my legs, leaving his neck exposed. I dive forward, catch the underhook on the way down, and then I can throw on the cow catcher with a chin strap guillotine. From here I just need to press my chest into him and I get the tap. For the second round, Joe chooses to use shin guard, but he gives me space to grab an underhook. He also doesn't control the inside position and allows me to scoop up his head. I'm looking for the same cow catcher technique as before, but my hand isn't as deep as it needs to be under his neck. The cow catcher is also great for flattening your opponent out. As I rotate around Joe's head, his back is pinned to the mat and I start to go into mount. And even when he brings his knee up to stop me, because I have the underhook, I can switch off to a 2-on-1 grip over the arm, which allows me to push his legs to the side and still remain in top side control. Now I set a trap for Joe, and that is that I have his arm tighter than a chassis belt and he wants to free it. However, as he frees it, it goes right where I need it to be and I get him with a straight arm lock, a submission you typically never see from me. For the last part of this round, I did a little bit of anti-jiu-jitsu. I'm making him do all the work and I can constantly back out until he pulls me in. This gives me the opening to jump into another guillotine, I lock it arm in the guard, and I get a tap over Joe. Round 2 is against Groot, and if you don't want to see a complete guillotine execution video, you're gonna have to click off. Groot wanted to see the full power of what it was like, and he definitely got some. We start off hand fighting, and because I'm standing tall, he goes for a shot with great timing. But his head is in my hip pocket and he taps almost faster than Carson. Groot decides sitting down might be the better answer, but unfortunately that puts his head right in my chest, the prime spot for a guillotine. I lock up another one and get another quick submission. This was then followed by guillotines 3, 4, and 5. Now I really wasn't trying to be a bully, but he paid to be guillotined, so I'm going to give him everything he wanted, including this one. The secret to the guillotine is that I use many grips. Most people know that I love the shallow grip, but I regularly shift between 5 grips depending on which scenario we are in. And the best part is that I created a buzzsaw guillotine system that's soon coming to you because I'm making an online course so you can guillotine people just like I did to Groot. It may have been a quick slaughter, but good effort to him and thanks for playing. For the third round, we have another victim who's going to be a local resident of Trinidad, but he poses a new problem because he's far taller than me. Don't get me wrong, I'll choke anybody no matter what their age or size is, but if I want to do footlocks with tall people, it's generally a tougher game. Right now he's trying to throw me into a calf slicer as I did here, but by bringing my second leg in, it made it impossible for him to keep my leg compressed. That's the easy way out of the calf slicer and it gave me enough space where I could start to stand up, which led to him pulling guard and I jumped right in on an ankle lock. Now I had my grip a little bit too high on his leg, so it was tough for me to do the ankle lock, but due to his size, I had to keep my arms there so I could keep his leg locked. Instead, when it didn't work, I let go and he fell into my common trap of when they try and take my back, I spin into the guillotine and I get an immediate tap. It is extremely common from this position that they want to take my back, but I have his leg stuck. A common response then is to work up so he can free his leg, but his head is on the wrong side and it makes an easy trap for my guillotine, and I get an easy one-arm finish while pulling on the armpit. Now certainly since he's seen my guillotine and I taught it to him as well, he won't get caught into another trap. Until I did the world's slowest arm drag so I can close the distance between the two of us, get my chest on top of his, and fall into another guillotine. He starts off by unwinding the choke going to his left, but he's doing it too slow and he allows me to get on top, where I can finish off another man. For the next round, I channel my inner Marcelo Garcia, starting in the butterfly guard to try and get a sweep going, until I realize wrestling is that much easier. I snap him down into another guillotine, and I can feel Marcelo smiling from here. It's pretty obvious by now that I can do a guillotine, but let's see a different setup in submission. Because he's letting me sit in a tall seated guard, I'm able to grab over the head, but instead of going towards the choke, I just take the back. I'm all about the path of least resistance, and when they keep their head too low, it's an easy thing to grab. The next easiest choice for me is to keep control over his wrist because I don't want him to have any post, which leads to him rolling to his side to protect his arm, but he gave me a Kimura / arm lock in the process. I throw the legs over the head and I have to go for a tight pinch right away. Now my opponent makes an interesting choice by not using the gable grip. He decides to cup his own elbows, but this leaves his right hand exposed and I can easily pry it away similar to an Americana to get the finish. He's got a few things to work on, but great effort from my partner. The next challenger approaching is a purple belt, but I'm sorry to say there's a little bit of an injury in this one. I start off in seated guard because it's an easy position to look for the inside ties and to start off with posture control as he pushes me down. Going back to my snap, I can technical stand up then do a knee pick so I can get the sweep and end up on top. I idly stand by thinking about what I'll do with the rest of my day as he's setting up a De La Riva hook, and I can easily spin up once he tries to take my back by framing against it with my shin and then going into the guillotine. But due to hand fighting, I instead take the back as we saw in the last round. Plus, I'm using some deep wrist control so I can keep control over his body as I roll him forward into an ankle lock entry. Because he's trying to stack me for pressure, I put my feet on his hips so I can create enough distance and I can go belly down on the ankle lock, which is going to be terrible as I get a quick pop over my opponent. It goes without saying that I felt terrible that this happened to him, although he reassured me this happens to him all the time and it's nothing to worry about. I'm all about mass safety, but he guarantees he's fine and he starts to take my back so I can show off one of my guillotine entries. As he tries to sit down, I can easily grab his back because at the higher posture, I get a grip over his neck and he fights it off for a while, but I can eventually get the finish as I roll him over into mount. Just like we saw before, both guys were trying to come up, they brought their arm across my waist and they left their neck exposed with no way to hand fight. Try to chase the hips instead of the back while keeping your head low and you won't end up like these guys. Now it's pretty important when people come out to a jiu-jitsu retreat to let them work a little bit. I mean, it's not like I was going up against Carson or Josh that are constantly trash talking, so I wanted him to work a few of his guards, whether it be De La Riva, getting guillotined guard, or whatever he wanted to choose. But one thing that I hope most people take away from the camp is that you can't let somebody grab your head. All the instructors are preaching this, and when he lets me get around his neck, I can easily use it to start passing his guard into the 3/4 mount. And 3/4 mount, his goal is to shift his hips so he pushes me into half guard, and I allowed that because I wanted to maintain control over his head, which was more important to me. So he did a nice job escaping, but then he let me scoop up the same grip as before where I could get to a guillotine, and we all know how it goes from here. Except I'm gonna flip the switch and go for a completely new submission, the Darce choke. Because he was naturally coming up to the turtle, I swapped out into the Darce choke, which is an easy way to break down their posture. I'm only able to grab my forearms because I have short arms, but as I'm able to kick to my side, then so far back that I can get past his legs and hook into mount, I get an easy submission and a new one for everyone to see. And I rolled with plenty of other people, so if you want to see them, comment below and let me know, and at the same time, remember, I'm making a guillotine course, so stay tuned for that one.